This is the Thriving Dentist Show with Gary Takis, where we help you develop your ideal dental practice, one that provides personal, professional, and financial satisfaction.
Welcome to another episode of the Thriving Dentist Show. I'm Gary Takis, your podcast co-host. We have a great episode for you today. It's titled Lessons from Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. Well, I'm sure all of you are familiar with the name Simon Sinek. He's a multiple New York Times best-selling author, and Leaders Eat Last is one of the amazing books that he's written. And I'm going to share with you some lessons from that book, Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. Before we get to that episode, though, two quick announcements to make. Coming up shortly after this episode is published, we have our next masterclass. That masterclass is titled Specific Plan to Reduce Your Overhead to 60% or Less. And that's on April 25th. April 25th starts at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. As that title might indicate, that masterclass is all about helping get your overhead under control. That topic's more important than ever right now because of the inflation that we're experiencing right now. Depending on whose records we cite, we've got inflation close to 10% these days. Perhaps it's even higher in dentistry. And it's harder and harder to keep our overhead to 60% or less when we're experiencing double-digit inflation. So come join us for this masterclass, 3 hours of deep content on how to get your overhead to 60% or less. It's done in a live stream format, so you get to attend from the comfort and convenience of your home or office with no travel hassles or travel delays. It is done live, though, so that you can ask me questions. You'll get 3 hours of CE credit, very inexpensive, less than $100 of tuition. I want to encourage you to come see us for that masterclass. You can go to thrivingdentist.com /masterclass to register. Now, our masterclasses do sell out. Even though they are digital, we limit attendance because I run them more like a workshop than a lecture. So if you're interested, jump over there and grab a seat while you still can. Hope I get to see you there. The second announcement I have is we have a returning guest contributor, Dr. Morris Budek. He actually goes by Mo Budek. And Mo is an instructor at UCLA, and he's going to share with you a wonderful synopsis, a short history of dentistry. Now, my undergraduate degree is in history, and I love everything about history. And Mo does an amazing job here of sharing with you the history of dentistry. I think you're really going to enjoy it. By the way, if you'd like to actually see this, Mo has actually produced a little video for us that we're going to put on our YouTube channel, so you can actually watch him go through this slide deck that he shares in the video version of this. And we'll put that on. It's on YouTube, and you can just look for the Thriving Dentist channel, and you'll see Mo Budek on the history of dentistry. Well, with no further ado, here's Dr. Mo Budek in the history of dentistry.
Greetings, folks. Dr. Mo Budek presents The History of Dentistry in 5 Minutes, Episode 1, The Stone Age. In the beginning, let us start with prehistory. What we know is that Homo habilis, through Homo sapiens, otherwise known as Paleolithic man, exhibited very little caries. He showed excessive enamel wear, most likely from the highly unrefined foods that he ate that contained stone and sand, but also from the grinding tools they used that would break off. The specimens that have been found showed a lot of wear down to exposed pulp, and these individuals had an average lifespan of age 35. If other things didn't kill them, perhaps their lack of dentition did. And here we have Urg taking care of Og, and he probably used simple tools. Going back to ancient origins 7,000 years ago, the ancient toothache theories. Well, consistently and throughout ancient times, and also across multiple civilizations and continents, similar theories on the origin of the toothache have spontaneously appeared at the same time. Those theories are the tooth worm theory, the humoral theory, and the demon theory. Let's review each. The tooth worm theory. This one states that the toothache is caused by a worm boring its way into the tooth. Here we have a depiction from a Turkish image, and it shows the worm boring its way through the occlusal surface of the tooth. We can see suffering inside the pulp here, and perhaps we can identify this and this as interproximal caries. Strange, huh? Or this was later replaced by the worm's spontaneous generation within the tooth, as evidenced by this French carving made out of ivory, a lovely piece. We can see the tooth is split in half. Of course, this isn't a real tooth, it's ivory. And we see the worm or snake inside there with suffering individuals, a grimace of pain. And in the other half, we see the fans of the flame of the heat of inflammation being beaten down over dead skulls. Very dark indeed. And that's probably the toothaches were very dark indeed. People would suffer for a long time, maybe even died from it. Next would be the humoral theory. In the humoral theory, it states that the toothache is caused by the stagnation of the depraved juices which reside in the teeth. In this instance, the body aims to restore the balance of its four humors. Those four humors are blood, yellow bile, black bile, and phlegm. So if we take a look at this graphic right here, we can see that ideal health is going to reside right there. That's a sweet spot for ideal health, all right? If we go too much in this quadrant and with overabundance of yellow bile, we have sickness. Overabundance of black bile, we have sickness. Overabundance of phlegm, we have sickness. And overabundance of blood, we have sickness. And then the treatments would be hot, dry, cold, and wet. Here, over a human system, that's a sweet spot there. Who knows what it looks like intestines to me. That's pretty gross. And the third would be the demon theory. The demon theory states the toothache is caused by the possession by evil spirits, causing an imbalance between health and sickness. In this theory, it's based upon mystical thinking, magic, and superstitions, of course, before the age of reason. The treatments that were employed were the use of amulets and incantations. Moving to the year 5000 BCE is pretty significant. We start to have writings. The first written mention of dentistry was found in clay tablets from the library of the Assyrian king Ashurbanipal in Mesopotamia, in the cradle of the civilization. These clay tablets were created by Sumerians from Babylon, which is now southern Iraq and Syria. The farming Sumerians had migrated from Africa and created the cradle of civilization in what we now call the Fertile Crescent. They describe toothache as coming from demons and worms. We've got a duality of theories right here. In these tablets, the legend of the worm can be found, and it is written and described thusly. You shall pulverize henbane and knead it with gum mastic and place it in the upper part of the tooth. So what they're doing is henbane repeats itself through dental history very often. Apparently, there's some psychoactive material in there that acts to obtund pain, right? You knead it with gum mastic, which is basically a sap or a tar and gummy substance. The first chewing gums were called gum mastic. You roll it into a ball and you stick it into the open carious lesion. Think eugenol, oil of clove. We mix it with polymer of reinforced zinc oxide to create a sedative filling. I did hundreds of these in my career, and they really worked. Continuing, and 3 times you shall recite this incantation. O Shamash, to thee I pray that I may shut him in and cover him over like a moth whose teeth hurt him not. So shall my tooth too not hurt me. And finally, for this episode, dentistry on the Indian continent. The Vedas were the secret Sanskrit writings, and especially the Arghur Veda in the year 4000 to 3000 BCE. They contain discourses on the diseases of the teeth and the mouth. The toothworm appears in these texts. And the first evidence of a toothbrush called the dantakashta is discovered, otherwise known as the chewing stick. And in fact, many people still use them, and you can buy them on Amazon. A toothpaste was made from a mixture of oil mixed with honey and herbs. Who knows what's in the herbs? Maybe some henbane, but also honey we know is a wonderful antiseptic. And the first evidence of loose teeth being splinted with silk or gold threads by jewelers. So these may have been the early craft dentists. All right, well, until next time, thank you and goodbye from me.
Welcome back to the Thriving Dentist Coaching in Action segment. This is Naren, your co-host. I want to take a minute to thank Dr. Budak for that wonderful history lesson. I enjoyed it very much, both the video and the commentary. Thank you, Doctor. Let's jump into today's Coaching in Action segment, Gary. And the title is Lessons from Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. Lessons from Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. Simon is a fellow Canadian, and I first heard of him when he did a TED Talk. And he talks about the question of, starting with why. And he said, great leaders, great companies always ask the question of why. It's not about the plan. It's not about our tactics. It's about why are we doing what we are doing? Because that brings people together. That brings a community together. That brings a team together. Even that brings you, the business or business owner, with your patients and clients together. So wonderful book. And we have talked about it in our prior episodes, and we have referenced Simon. So Gary, I'm really looking forward to this book, True Confessions. This is the only book that I haven't read yet, but I know it was a major, major hit when it comes to the book club you did recently. So I'm definitely going to watch it again, the videos. Anyways, I'll let you talk about all of that stuff. Plus, I'm going to also read that book quickly. I actually, while we were speaking earlier, I just bought the book on Audible, so I made sure I had it.
And so, Naren, here's a trivia question for you.
Yes.
Simon Sinek's TED Talk on Start With Why is the second most viewed TED Talk in all time. Do you have any guess as to how many views it's had? Any guess? Second of all time.
Tens of millions. I'm thinking 30 million. Is that too high?
Over 100 million views.
100 million views. Okay.
So Simon Sinek clearly has some insight.
Yes.
And we chose this book. So one of the things we do in Thriving Dentist is we do book club with our clients. And one of the reasons we do, first of all kinds of great content when we really take a in-depth look at authors' thoughts. But one of the main reasons why we do that is we want to create a culture in our clients' practices of continuous improvement, where we're simply better tomorrow than we are today. As a practice, as a dentist clinically, and collectively as a team. And if we want our team members to embrace continuous improvement, the best way to do that is to model it. Is the doctor himself or herself also demonstrating that despite that they have a doctorate degree, they're interested in learning more. And so we embrace book club, and we do book club with our clients. And this particular book was a huge hit, Leaders Eat Last. And the book is subtitled, Why Some Teams Pull Together and Others Don't. And I think that subtitle really accurately describes the landscape in dental offices around the country. Some dental offices have amazing teams that pull together, and guess what? Some don't.
Right.
And it is so appropriate for dentistry. And why? Simon Sinek goes into detail about it. Well, we have a very special opportunity for our listeners. I want to take a minute and talk about that, then we'll dive into the book. So we have an opportunity that's very special for you. For the first time ever, we're going to make the video, actually videos, there were two. We did, because the book was so rich in content, we broke it down into part 1 and part 2. Part 1 and part 2. And we did them on 2 separate evenings. And we recorded those, and we're going to share them with you. If you're interested in watching those, you'll get the benefit of what all of our clients did by being there and attending that book club. So we're going to put that access to that. Remind me where we're going to put that.
Absolutely, Gary. We're going to have a quick link or short link, and plus we're going to include that short link in the show notes, and that link is www.thrivingdentist.com/book club, one word, www.thrivingdentist.com/book club/.
Yeah.
Anyways,
So
if you don't remember it, just go to the show notes and click on the link. You'll get it.
If you're listening, that's a pretty easy URL to remember. Again, thrivingdentist.com/book club/ again. and that'll take you to a link, and you'll have access to the book club videos. And I want to encourage you to watch those. It will make a tremendous difference. And we're doing that at no cost. It's free. It's as a courtesy for you listening to the Thriving Dentist Show. So thank you.
Gary, I want to take a minute to thank you, because I think this is a gift that's probably worth hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars, because of how power packed it is. I had the opportunity to watch it, and it's amazing. It's just, you have kind of made it relevant to dentistry. So it's not all the other stuff, and you have to now figure out how to apply to dentistry. You literally just, gave it on a silver plate, so to speak.
Well, when we do book club, we always bring it back to I lead these book clubs, and we always bring them back to, yeah, this is great and everything, but how do we apply it to dentistry? For example, another book that we did that you're all familiar with is Jim Collins' Good to Great. Right. And of course, that was written primarily for a business audience, right? Good to Great. But we spent a lot of time talking about, okay, how do we adapt this to dentistry? How do we adapt it to dentistry? So everything about Leaders Eat Last, we adapted to dentistry. It's all there in those part 1 and part 2. So there you go. It's yours. It's our gift to you. And thanks for you listening. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share the takeaways that I wrote, that I covered, the things I took away from the book. But it is just rich in content. And for those of you that are more of a listener than a reader, the book's available on Audible. And Simon Sinek is a narrator. He actually narrates his own book. So I like it when the author narrates their own work. Sometimes they hire a guest narrator, maybe with a baritone voice or something, Right. But in this case, Simon Sinek narrates himself. I always like it when they narrate themselves, because they emphasize the things they want you to learn. So if you're more of a listener than and maybe you are because you listen to podcasts, if you're more of a listener than a reader, then, buy the Audible version, listen to it. But no matter what, you can watch our videos and get some great education at no cost. And again, that's thanks for being a listener. All right, here's some takeaways that I have. And I'm going to kind of introduce each one, then I'll talk about a little bit. Well, in the beginning of the book, there's a bio provided by Simon about his biography. And one of the points in his biography is that Simon Sinek is an unshakable optimist. Simon Sinek is an unshakable optimist. And the reason why that's a takeaway is I think there's such a good leadership lesson there, that you want to lead from a position of optimism, because it's hopeful. And your team, you're responsible for setting the climate and tone in your practice, doctor. The reason I chose this book is many of our clients said, Gary, we want to become better leaders. We realize that leadership skills are they're essentially the governor of your practice, Now, I may be using the term governor in the way that you may not understand. So let me take a minute and explain the way that I'm using the term governor. Naren, do you know what a governor is in the context of a go-kart, of a motorized go-kart? Do you know what governor means there?
No, I do not.
Okay, I'm glad I asked, because many of our listeners might have the same thought.
Right.
My brothers and I'm the oldest of 3 brothers. We were constantly building go-karts when we were kids, motorized go-karts. And my dad was smart enough to know that he had to put a governor on the throttle. The governor in this context means it's a control that controls the top speed of the go-kart. It's a governor. It controls it. My dad was smart. My dad had worked for Ford Motor Company, so he knew a bit about mechanics. And so he knew he needed to put a governor on these carts or we'd kill each other, because we would go as fast as it could go. Right. This is before the era of safety, so there'd be no helmets, no personal protection gear, none of that.
No seat belts, no airbags.
Yeah, no knee pads, no elbow pads, no padded suit. Yeah. So my dad set a governor, and periodically he would go back and recheck it to make sure we didn't disable it, because we would disable it. So the context of governor is, doctors, I want you to listen very carefully. The governor that will control how far you go as a practice is your leadership skills. It's not your clinical skills. It's not your technology or lack of it. It's not your office and how many treatment rooms you have. It's none of that. It's your leadership skills. that your leadership skills will be the governor, will be the control on how far you can go to develop your practice. Naren, I made a bold statement. Would you accept that? You work with a lot of dentists. Would you accept that as truth?
Absolutely. I mean, even entrepreneurs, right? Even like you think of like Steve Jobs as a, awesome entrepreneur. I think as he grew and the phase 2 of his life, it was all about his leadership skills, his ability to get a group of people to work together and grow together. I mean,
well, I made it my life's work to study world-class dentists, world-class practices. And I've yet to meet a world-class practice that didn't also have an effective leader. They go hand in hand. It's like a requirement. It's like a prerequisite. Right. And the great thing about leadership, now, in some cases, individuals have more natural aptitude than others. Would you accept that, Naren? Some people have more natural aptitude than others?
Yes. You're saying that they have leadership skills like almost
in their DNA.
Innately, that they don't have to kind of work at it as hard as the other people.
But the good news is leadership can absolutely be learned. That's the redeeming quality. Leadership can absolutely be learned. Just like you can learn how to hit a baseball or you can learn how to catch a football. Leadership can be learned. So I hope that's encouraging to everyone. All right, another takeaway that I have, and this is a quote that Simon provided by John Quincy Adams. And the quote is, if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. Let me read that again. Quote John Quincy Adams. If your actions inspire you to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. What a great quote, doctors, to maybe have on your
inspire,
on your
not inspire you, but inspire others, correct?
Right. If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. What a great quote to put on your desk, doctor, and maybe look at it every morning and follow it, because it will set the tone for your practice.
Mm-hmm.
Simon talked about the value of empathy, and he used it in a different context. And the context that we adapted this, most dentists think of themselves as empathetic. They think of themselves as empathetic, as caring and empathetic. And usually when if I ask, doctor, do you think of yourself as empathetic? They think of how they demonstrate empathy towards their patients, which is very important.
Right.
But in this context, Simon was talking about empathy to your team members, understanding and being empathetic, and how important it is to have team members that literally would do anything for you, for your practice,
right,
because of what you've demonstrated to them. Very, very important. He spent a lot of time in the book talking about creating a circle of safety, And he used some graphics in the book that talked about we're constantly surrounded by threats. He actually used an Aesop's fable to describe. Remember Aesop's fable, Naren, the children's fables? There's an Aesop's fable about four oxen, big oxes with big horns. And these four oxen had gotten together, and they were often preyed upon by lions, in the savannas of Africa. And when the four oxen would get together in a circle with their back ends facing in and their heads and horns facing out, the lions could never attack them because it was a powerful circle of safety.
Right.
But if they wandered away from that, and maybe they were fighting amongst their fellow brethren of oxen, and they decided, I don't like you guys anymore, I'm going to go wander down to another field, and they were by themselves, guess what happened to the oxen? They got eaten by the lions.
They got eaten by the lions, yeah.
But when they're in the circle of safety, they talked about the importance of creating a circle of safety in his case, he was saying business, but I'm going to say it in terms of your practice, creating a circle of safety. And I love this next point. And this is a quote from Simon in the book. It is your role as a leader to set an internal culture that is free of threats and rich in unity. It's your role as a leader to set an internal culture in your practice that is free of threats and rich in unity. So you're all together. It's all together in the same boat, rowing together.
Right.
he spent a great deal of time in the book, and it was fascinating. He talked about neurochemicals. Neuroscience is so fascinating to me, Naren. It has so much to do with everything we're learning more about neuroscience than we've ever known. And Simon talked about the four, he called it EDSO, EDSO. And those are the four neurochemicals coursing through our body. E stands for endorphin. D is dopamine. S is serotonin. O is oxytocin. EDSO. Endorphins and dopamine are the selfish neurochemicals. Selfish. So most of us know about endorphins. One of the reasons I love long distance running is because the way it creates endorphins in my body. So endorphins are created by your body to overcome the pain that you're experiencing working out. Endorphins. Dopamine is something that's created that makes you feel good. It's created, through your biochemistry, make you feel good when you're accomplishing a goal. It's why, almost every time I've run a marathon, I've run a half marathon, crossing that finish line. Trust me, I'm in serious pain crossing that finish line, but it feels so darn good because I just accomplished a goal. That's dopamine. Serotonin and oxytocin are the selfless neurochemicals, the selfless ones. Serotonin makes you feel grateful for the people who support you. You know that feeling of gratitude that you have, Naren? Right. Then you have a sense of gratitude. That's serotonin coursing through your body. Oxytocin is responsible for love, and it's released when hugging or bonding. There's a lot of missing oxytocin during COVID-19.
Yes.
There's no hugging going on.
Right.
Now, one other neurochemical that's real that we have to address is cortisol. Cortisol is very important for us to recognize. And dentistry is a cortisol-soaked environment. Not by our doing, but it's just the nature of the beast. Cortisol means stress. Cortisol is stress. Oxytocin counteracts cortisol. It neutralizes when you're feeling stressed. If you can figure out how to create oxytocin, then it counteracts the cortisol and it eliminates the stress. Anyway, there's tremendous coverage throughout the book on EDSO, endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin. And then he's got an entire chapter on the dreaded C, which is cortisol. Very, very useful. And all this relates to a dental office because, I'll give you an example. For example, oxytocin is responsible for love and released when hugging or bonding. When you bond and connect with your patients, they're subconsciously, their biochemistry is releasing oxytocin.
Right.
And that is completely neutralizing the stress that maybe at one time they felt in visiting the dentist. So what an encouragement to develop a relationship-driven practice, because when you have a relationship-driven practice, bonding is going on. Very useful. He talks about eyeball leadership. Eyeball leadership means that you're face-to-face, eye-to-eye with your team members. And that's something that occurs a lot in dentistry, but maybe we could make it occur a little bit more. Eyeball leadership. Now, I love this next takeaway, Naren. I feel like every one of these takeaways we could make an entire, podcast episode out of. This next one is, and I'm going to use the exact term that he wrote in the book, but then I'm going to modify it to dentistry. Customers will never love a company until its employees love it first. Let's adapt that to down. I'll just change some words. Patients will never love a practice until its team members love it first. Isn't that an interesting concept? We want our patients to love your practice, and that's what we want. I know it sounds crazy, but that's what we want. We want patients to love your practice.
Right.
That when you go out of network, they love you so much and they appreciate you so much, they would never want to go anywhere else. But the only way that happens is when your
team members love it first.
Love it first. Another takeaway, managers look after numbers, leaders look after people. So it has to be people driven. That's why I like a philosophy where it's all about taking care of patients the way we'd like to be taken care of, clinically and behaviorally. Provide the clinical care that we would want and provide the behavioral experience, provide the experience visiting our practice that we would want.
So
guess what happens? When that happens, then the money follows, then the numbers follow. So managers look after numbers, leaders look after people. Very important point.
So when he says people, does he mean the team or customers? Team. Okay.
The team. Winning should not come at the cost of serving people. Winning should not come at the cost. He used some examples of point and counterpoint of businesses that use layoffs just to make their numbers look good. Now, that doesn't apply so much in dentistry, but they're useful lessons. Winning should not come at the cost of serving people. And so think about that and think about how that can be applied in dentistry. He talked about the value of purpose, which of course, comes from his epic book, Start With Why. Purpose. Doctor, do you have a purpose? If you asked each one of your team members individually, tell me what our purpose is. Can they tell you? I don't mean reading a statement, reading a mission statement. No, I mean, what are you about? What is it about? The value of purpose. And I'll close with this point, and then we'll go on to the Q&A segment. This is important. Let us all be the leaders we wish we had. That was a closing point in the book. And that was a message moving forward as now you know this information. What do we do with it? And Simon said, let us all be the leaders we wish we had. Well, as you can tell, I'm a little bit passionate around this book. I hope I've inspired you to read it, listen to it, watch our videos, part 1 and part 2, because those are all applied to dentistry. Again, those are free. Just go to thrivingdentist.com/book club / and there they are for you. Naren, let's hit pause on the coaching in action. Let's dive into our question and answer segment.
Welcome back to the Thriving Dentist Q&A segment. Gary, that was an inspiring book. And of course, you did an inspiring job talking about it. And more importantly, I'm so appreciative of what you have done to our listeners. You're literally giving them a gift worth hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. Your exclusive book club that you did with your clients, your Thriving Dentist coaching clients, that only they get to see. For the very first time ever, you have taken 2 of those videos that are exclusively given to your clients and given it to anyone who listens to the Thriving Dentist show. So thank you for that. And I know some of our listeners got an early access, and some of them have watched those videos and they have sent in some questions too. So let me start by asking the very first question, Gary. Gary, I love this book, and I really found your book club recording very useful. In the book, Simon Sinek talks about the importance of creating a circle of safety. How can I create a circle of safety, yet also be able to take corrective action with my team members when necessary?
What a great question. And I want to point out that a circle of safety does not mean that you're soft. Does not mean that anything goes and you can't make corrective action. It doesn't mean that at all. And so they are not mutually exclusive, Aaron. It's not mutually exclusive to have a circle of safety, and yet also be able to take corrective action with team members when necessary. They're not mutually exclusive. So some tips on that. You will find, doctor, you'll be way more effective when you need to take corrective action by making sure you have deposits in the bank before you take a withdrawal. Now, what do I mean by that, Aaron? Compliments, think about your bank account. Mm-hmm. If you haven't made a deposit, we can't take a withdrawal. Well, you can, but you're going to get fines. And
I love the Stephen Covey concept, right? Emotional bank account.
It's an emotional bank account. Yeah.
The more you deposit into it, the more things you do for somebody else. When you need something, now you can withdraw it.
And what I mean specifically by that is, doctor, you need to have many more compliments to your team members than corrective actions. Because when you compliment them, and compliments need to be as specific as possible. If we simply say, Linda, you did a good job today, that's warm and fuzzy, but it's not very specific and not very lasting. But if you can say, Linda, I happen to be in the hallway this afternoon, I think it was around 2:00, when you had that patient that was checking out, that she had so many questions. And just when I thought she couldn't have any more questions, she had 3 or 4 more. but you were so patient and you're so understanding. I want to take a minute and say thanks. You have represented our practice so well. And I noticed that patient left, and I'm sure she left with happiness and satisfaction because you were patient enough to answer her questions. Thank you. That's a different compliment. So that's one tip. Make sure you have deposits before you take the withdrawals. The other one is when you need to take corrective action. When you need to take corrective action, there's a wonderful technique called the 1-minute reprimand or the 1-minute correction. It was provided by Ken Blanchard. This was another book we did in book club for our clients called The 1-Minute Manager. The 1-Minute Manager. And there's a chapter in the book, honest to gosh, it's 7 pages long, big print. You could read the entire chapter in less than 2 minutes. And it's called The 1-Minute Correction. And I'm just going to tease you with that one now. And I'm going to ask you all to get that book, the 1-Minute Manager, and read the chapter on the 1-minute correction. Because whenever we need to take corrective action, it's a great method to use. It's a great method to have on your hip pocket, because you could always conclude that by something, saying something positive. Aaron, if you were the team member that I had to take corrective action with, I'm going to say something like this at the end. Naren, and I think that when you have a chance to reflect a little bit on our conversation that we just had, I want you to know that I have 100% confidence in you, that you will make the changes so that doesn't occur again. Now, I want you to read the whole chapter, but it's following that 1-minute reprimand or 1-minute correction by Ken Blanchard, 1-Minute Manager. It's the way to do that, and yet the circle of safety stays intact.
Thank you, Gary. Let me ask you the second question. In the book, Simon says, leaders look after people and managers look after numbers. How much of the numbers information within quote do you think is important to share with the team?
Well, great question. And let's remember that any dentist needs to be both a leader and a manager because of the scope of the size of our organization. Right. You got to be a leader and a manager. You got to look after the people and look after the numbers. But I'd like it to be more about looking after the people. When I say the people, I'm talking about your patients. But I actually believe that information is power. And I believe in sharing information with our team members. The exception to that is I don't believe in sharing individual compensation details. I think that's private between you and between the employer and the employee. But otherwise, sharing the information. For example, having a daily goal. How can your scheduling coordinator help you achieve a daily goal if she doesn't know what the daily goal is?
Right.
So I think in a dental context, we can be very open about sharing information with our team members because they can't help us get there and help us achieve them if they don't have that information. But always lead with it being about patients. It's being about, for example, same-day dentistry, adding same-day dentistry. You know, the opportunity to, let's say we're below goal for the day when we go to the morning huddle and we're below our goal. I think it's perfectly okay to talk about, hey, our goal today is this and we're here. We're going to need to add a little bit today to make goal. But frame it as, how does adding treatment in today serve our patients? Well, we save them a trip. They don't have to come back. What's everyone's most valuable asset? Their time. We save them a trip. We help them utilize insurance benefits that if they don't use them, they lose them. We help them proactively take care of their mouth when maybe something could be done more conservatively, less invasively, before it becomes more complicated. There's 3 ways we serve our patients. So let's talk about the reason why we want to embrace same-day dentistry, guys, is for these 3 outcomes. We want to save people the trip. We want to help them utilize whatever insurance benefits they have. And we want to be able to treat them conservatively before something becomes more complicated. By the way, as a result of that, our numbers will take care of themselves.
Absolutely. That makes total sense. So numbers are like the rail that you hold on to, but your vision is where you're going. You know,
well, I think of the numbers as the scorecard. Mm-hmm. How we did at serving.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right.
Makes sense. Let me ask you the third question, Gary. The truth is, any dental office is a cortisol-soaked environment. How can I effectively counteract that reality?
Yeah, every dental office on the planet is a cortisol-soaked environment. Not because of anything you do, but because of the preconceptions people have when they arrive in your office. I mean, sadly, dentistry is still, the butt of late night jokes, on late night TV. Like, oh, I had to go to the dentist today. Like I had to have a root canal. I wish they'd stop telling those jokes. But it's how people feel. And it's a cortisol-soaked environment. And Naren, do you remember what the counteraction to cortisol is? It's oxytocin.
Oxytocin, yes.
And oxytocin is what we feel, when we love something, and it's released when we hug. Now, I'm not sure where hugging is. I am a hugger by nature. I'm not sure where we are on hugging with COVID-19, but I'll let you guys decide your own comfort zone with that. But it's bonding. It's bonding here. When you bond with your patients, oxytocin is released. So imagine how bonding could be. Let's say your patient's name is Susan, Naren, and let's say you're doing a treatment that requires 2 visits. And when she was about to leave the first visit, she said she's really excited because she was going to take a trip this next weekend to visit her mother. She hadn't seen her mother in a while, and she was taking a trip to visit her mother. And let's say you made some notes and you remember that. And the next time she comes in, week and a half later for the second part of her appointment, you say, Susan, good to see you. I was thinking about you. How was your visit to your mother? How was your visit to visit your mother? How is Susan going to feel?
She's going to feel, like you care, right? Because you remembered about her and her mom. And
what happened at a neurochemical level?
It's oxytocin. It's
oxytocin's released.
Oxytocin. Yeah, because love. They feel loved. They feel
loved. They feel cared for. They feel appreciated. They feel important. You remembered.
Yeah.
You remembered, doctor. Wow.
Yes. In the world
so that's how you do it. You bond, you connect. And everything about, I'm going to get on my soapbox for just a minute. Everything about a PPO practice takes you away from bonding with your patient.
Very true.
It makes you process them. It makes you a hamster on a treadmill. You not only a hamster on a treadmill, but when you start the morning, you got to put roller skates on. You got to put rocket boosters on the back of your roller skates, and they got to shoosh up and down the hall. If that isn't cortisol-soaked environment, I don't know what is. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox.
Thank you.
That's why I need to kick the PPO plans to the curb.
No, that makes total sense. Yeah, it's just not healthy. It's not fun for anybody, not for the team, not for the patients. So
I just felt my cortisol level go up, and I thought about Delta Dental. Delta Dental, they are such a bully. Okay, yeah. I'll try to release some oxytocin to counteract that cortisol.
Last and the fourth question, Gary. It seems like my team members are just here to do a job. What can I do to create more engagement from my team members?
Well, Doctor, thank you for the transparency and the vulnerability of sharing that. And I imagine that many of our listeners might feel the same way. And many dentists, everywhere around the world might feel that way. But you can change that. I think remember I started, with the first takeaway I have, Simon Sinek's an unshakable optimist.
Yes.
You can change this. You can change this. And, there was another point that I made. It was the second to last point, the value of purpose. I think why team members feel like it's just a job is they don't get the purpose of what you're doing. There's not a bigger purpose. There's not a bigger goal. It's not a bigger game. Naren, you know a lot about millennials. I think you have a lot of millennial employees.
I do.
Would that be accurate?
That is accurate.
By the way, they are the largest group, generational group in our society. They're the largest. They just last year they replaced baby boomers. You know why the millennial group is now larger than the baby boomer group?
Well, the baby boomers are dying, and the millennials, the
millennials are young, and the baby boomers are dying off.
Right.
And so, statistically, the largest number of team members that you'll have will be millennials. Statistically, they're who are populating our workforce today. And all of my dental students, virtually all of my dental school students, are millennials. And I'm going to tell you that millennials have some amazing qualities. They have some challenging qualities as well, but they have amazing qualities. It's difficult to generalize about an entire generation. But one of the qualities of millennials is most millennials want to be part of something that's bigger than them. They want to be part of something. Many millennials have participated in the Peace Corps, more so than other generations. Why is that? Because they want to be part of something that's bigger than themselves.
Correct.
And so is your practice part, is it about changing the lives of others? If your practice purpose is about changing the lives of others, then there is a bigger purpose. And I think you're going to create greater engagement because that's what people want. And who is responsible for creating an environment where your practice is about changing the lives of others?
You, the leader. Yes.
You are the leader. And so you have got to beat that drum and demonstrate it and model it. But it truly is about, pardon my enthusiasm around dentistry, but I believe that dentistry rocks. It absolutely rocks because we have the ability to change lives every day. It could be something you do clinically. A patient could come to your practice with very compromised dentition, and through your wonderful care, skill, and judgment, you provide a gorgeous, healthy smile to that patient. Could be something like that. Or it could be something on a much more behavioral level. Maybe someone a patient just needed someone to listen to them. And your listening, became exactly what they needed, at that point. So it's truly about, changing the lives of others. And I want you, the doctors, to start thinking about how that relates to your team members. How are you changing the lives of your team members? And that's how I think we can create greater engagement, because I think people want to be a part of that. It's not just, that old, the saying, hi ho, it's off to work I go. I did see a bumper sticker the other day that said, I owe, it's off to work I go. And, sometimes it can feel that way, and I get it, but man, rise above it and create a purpose for your practice that is all about something that's bigger than you. It's about legacy. It's about leaving a legacy, and it's about truly impacting the lives of others, one person at a time. Pardon my enthusiasm, but that's how I feel. And that's been my story, and I'm sticking to it. Well, as we wrap up today, a quick reminder, we've got a masterclass coming up April 25th, specific plan to reduce your overhead to 60% or less. Come join us for that masterclass if you like. I'd love to help you reduce your overhead. And Aaron, I want to take a minute and thank you as we wrap up today for co-hosting the podcast, and also all the amazing work that you and your team members do at Equa to help dentists replace Delta as a source of new patients with Google as a source of new patients. If you want to know how to replace Delta as a source of new patients with Google, much better choice, by the way, then schedule a marketing strategy meeting. You can go to equa.com/MSM. That stands for marketing strategy meeting. That would be time very well spent. I also want to thank all of our listeners. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for the privilege of your time. Naren and I look forward to connecting with you on the next Thriving Dentist Show.